So I was really maybe hoping for too much from this exotic mission, and I might have been putting personally too much pressure on it to provide a good experience in an episode that's been just chock full of lackluster experiences. And, personally for me, I think the mission wasn't that great. I think the art and the way everything looked and sounded was really, really cool. And the puzzles were decently thought out. I didn't think they were anything special. I mean, nothing's really gonna compare to raid mechanics in a sense. Salvation's Edge was, it had one really difficult mechanic and in Verity, and the rest of the raid was, pretty normal for Destiny, and I would say this exotic mission falls into that category. It's not terribly complicated, it's not so simplistic that you can just figure it out immediately, although most people will. And yeah, I mean, really, the only saving grace for this mission is the auto rifle is really, really good. The music is cool. The lore has some pretty big implications on what's going on with Maya and Chioma Essie. I'll try to spare any spoilers on that part because I know not everyone has had a chance to play it out yet. And not to mention, there's also going to be more lore in the coming weeks. As we know, with most of these exotic missions, the lore tends to trickle week by week as we get more information throughout the mission. Now, with that being said, I think at this point, passing judgment on the mission, it is kind of early, but we have, I would guess, most of the mission in our hands and, been able to play it. It's not challenging, there's nothing crazy in it, and, the articles I was seeing from various news outlets about how this was the biggest exotic mission to date, it doesn't feel like that was the case. I could be wrong. Maybe this is like the largest in terms of the environment or the total space they used. But in my honest opinion, again, it just didn't feel like the biggest, or at least the most notable anyways. Doesn't help that this episode's story pacing has very much made the story feel underwhelming in every way, shape, and form. I don't know how more I can emphasize that because it's had a huge impact on just the lack of interest of a majority of people. And some people don't play for the story, maybe they play for the exciting exotic missions, and this just wasn't it. You had to play through a majority of Act 2, I think, to be able to access this mission. Not to mention there were bugs with the mission, and even the auto rifle in its current state is bugged, so it's performing better than it is supposed to. So it's gonna get not nerfed necessarily, but it will obviously feel a little bit worse once they patch the Choir of One. I don't want to get too much into how that has affected it because, the bugs and whatnot don't really tell you the whole story because that's just really Bungie's poor management, not the work of the devs, which is what I always try to stick to if I can. But obviously, it has put a damper on this act so far, as well as the exotic mission, not being able to access it, or, playing a bugged version of the mission or whatever. There was a way you could get soft locked too when it first came out. If you died with the Vex connection buff or one of those buffs, it would just not respawn, so you were soft locked out of continuing the mission. So we take a look here at Choir of One, which is, it's a cool looking gun, I will say. It looks cool, it sounds cool, and definitely, you see a little Ishtar Collective symbol back there, definitely on the part of the design team. This was well done. It has the exotic trait, Fanatical Lance. Rapid final blows cause targets to explode into a pool of radiolarian fluid. Hip firing launches multiple projectiles at once in a slower moving spread pattern. Projectiles detonate on impact. And for your ADS, you get increased precision damage when you're ADSing. And for the command frame 2, fires extended range heavy caliber projectiles at a reduced rate of fire. So the way I describe it is when you're firing this thing from the hip, it's kind of like a shotgun. When you are firing it whilst aiming down sights, it's kind of like Graviton Lance in a sense that it's a auto rifle, but it feels a bit more like a heavy rate of fire scout rifle. Graviton is obviously a pulse rifle, but when you're shooting it, it kind of feels like a really, well, not really super slow, but just like a medium rate of fire scout rifle. So it's a cool concept. I like that we're getting more special ammo primaries in the game. I, for one, I'm here for this. I mean, we got a heavy ammo trace rifle with microcosm. It's one of the best guns in the game. And right now, by the way, if you want to go get this thing, it's bugged. It's doing insane amounts of damage with Divinity buffing it. So, you know, if you wanted to go into any raid encounter and use this to just melt things, you're gonna do great. I think the other bug was that it's holding too much in its reserves, way more than intended. So go ahead and take advantage of that as well. I, for one, was thinking this is gonna go great with a Gear Falcons build. It's okay for the most part. Also, Warlocks out there, Battle of Mantle Harmony, or Mantle of Battle Harmony. I always get that mixed up. That might also go pretty well with this. I'm gonna showcase here a little bit of gameplay of just how it fires. So when you're hip firing, it's gonna fire kind of like a wyvern spread. Kind of let you see how it spreads out like that. It's very much like a shotgun spread, and then aiming down sights, you get this just one little consistent splatter. And you can see with the spread here, it does about 5,000 damage, or if you want to add up those 494s and see what it is. But when you're ADSing, you're getting about 6.7 thousand damage with that, with no buffs. And you can see right now it holds about 240, 250 in reserves. So, you know, it's definitely a fun concept. You know, I was really like debating, am I going to use this in any situation over Buried Bloodline? And the answer is probably no, because Buried Bloodline is just so strong. If you do run this with Gear Falcons, you get Volatile, so you have Barrier whenever sidearms don't have a champ mod in the artifact. Not to mention having Devour is so good, and you have the ability to weaken on demand once you've been granted that Devour. Buried Bloodline is just so good, so we'll have to see after the bug gets fixed with Choir of One whether or not it is at all meta. It's definitely a fun gun, a fun idea. I just wish it had more of a reliance, or more of a thing. It just feels like a strong void weapon. I mean, that's kind of it. It doesn't have a niche, at least in my opinion. You can burn through ammo somewhat quickly, as you can see here. It takes about 5 shots for the hip firing here. Although since I'm in the Enclave, I'm just gonna keep getting ammo. And for every ADS shot, it only takes 1 bullet, so it does seem to be a bit more economical and efficient to use the ADS on this thing so that you can get ammo back. Whereas if you're doing this, really if you're using the hip fire, it's more like of an, oh shit, there's something right next to me I need to delete. You can also do a decent amount of damage, but if you're aiming down sights, you know, using that div bubble, it seems that this is the way to go, which kind of makes me regret there's no like 4th times or triple tap on this thing to kind of help with the ammo economy. But it has Subsistence, which I have on now. It's the first perk you can get this week. You can also get Onslaught and Destabilizing in the coming weeks as well. So the weapon is, you know, it's not bad, it's not great, it's kind of in the middle. It's meh. It would be like the best way I can put it. And the mission itself, at least to me, it felt very underwhelming overall. Don't get me wrong, the sound design is great, the environment is just something to behold. So definitely go do it. I mean, if you have the episode, and I mean, you're probably going to do it eventually, whether I tell you you should or not. But again, I wouldn't rush unless you want to get Choir of One while it's still bugged and enjoy it in its current state, because it's definitely enjoyable. Let me know what your thoughts are on the mission so far. Of course, please be respectful. I know the devs are working hard, or as hard as they can, because obviously they're short-staffed. So please be respectful to them. They are working hard, and hopefully there's more good stuff to come. This is just, in my opinion, it isn't it. I think there's more in the tank than we got here. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.